See, I don't know what I'd do without Bev and Robin and, you know, Lindsay and all the people who come with me on observations. Rhonda, Chris, Eric, Robin and Cash, you know, all these amazing colleagues to learn from. So the agenda will be starting with Monticello. Lindsay will tell you a little bit about her terrifying experience with me at the University of Utah. And then she always invites me. And so it's really cool to go to their ending portfolio exhibition with the teachers who have done the competency-based ESL endorsement. And so she'll introduce the teacher who will present. And then after that, we'll go to Eric. And I don't know if Ellie's here, but we'll do Eric from Wasatch. She'll talk a little bit about his experience of the final exhibition. And then we'll move to Ellie, and she'll, I think, do the introductions to the, I think, Eric, we have two teachers.
Yes, we do.
Who will present their portfolio exhibition. So I'll let Ellie do that, but I'm interested in having Eric just kind of frame the conversation, because this goes back to this idea that oftentimes the ALS department or federal programs ends up being separate from curriculum, you know, and teaching and learning, and that's really not the case in Wasatch. Okay, so Lindsay, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to monitor the chat, so I can see if there are any questions.
Sounds good. I'm Lindsay Heinig. I'm from Monticello Academy, and I had the pleasure, like Christelle was talking about 5 years ago, I think, to work with her up at the University of Utah, going through her competency-based program to it didn't end in an endorsement. It was really just about learning more about the Tesol standards and how to set competency-based goals in a way that Christelle was really hoping to move the ESL endorsement program, which I love to see that is where it's going now, because the work that we did up there was terrifying. It was completely different than anything we'd done, even different than any competency-based learning that I had done in the past, because even that competency-based learning was someone telling me what to read, telling me what to do. And this was truly about evaluating my own learning and my own understanding about these Tesol standards, and then based on my learning or my understanding, setting goals for myself. And that was really scary, because setting goals for yourself and figuring out how you're going to meet those goals and those standards and be able to prove with evidence how you've done that learning was so intimidating. And I think a lot has changed in the last 5 years. It's become a lot more common, and it's a little bit less scary to adult learners, but it still is something that's very hard to get people on board with. And I think that's always my biggest struggle running a program like that. Just trying to remind adult learners that it's not all about checking boxes. It truly is about figuring out what you need as a learner to really change the outcomes for your students. And it's deeper learning than I think people are anticipating, because what they find is they set one goal, and that goal ends up turning into 3 or 4 goals as they continue. Because when you're truly taking on this idea and really embodying the just essence of this type of program, the learning really doesn't stop. And so it's really about setting the stage for yourself as a learner and setting the stage for other adult learners to develop this type of program in themselves. Because Maddie, who's going to talk about this in just a minute, he's excited to jump into the school year and continue this learning, even though he's earned his endorsement and he technically could be done, check that box. It's learning that's never done. And I think that that's the most beautiful part of it. So when my teachers
Okay, Lindsay, you're frozen.
have to end their year with this, because they have to take one of different pieces. Oh no, am I back?
Yeah, you're back now. Okay.
But my teachers have to really take some time to familiarize themselves with the Tesol standards and then work to set meaningful goals based on each one of them. And that's the hardest part, is setting it up. And then the program is really about working as a team, working as peers to check in with each other throughout the year to see what progress we're making, on those goals and what progress our students are making because of those goals and that work that they're doing. And by the end of the year, when they are ready to present their portfolios, they really are just sharing the goals that they set, sharing the journey that they had to reach those goals, and then sharing that evidence. And so that's what we're going to have Maddie share in just a minute here. He's going to go over, he's our middle school art teacher here at Monticello. I think this will be his 4th year at Monticello, if I'm correct. And he did some really exciting work with all of his students, but focusing on his ESL students that he's worked with for multiple years, and that he's already seen growth in them. But now he was looking at how to actually measure that growth so that he could see what it was that he was doing that was actually affecting change for those kids. And I think it's going to be exciting for everybody to see this and maybe find ways that you can replicate it in your own school and classrooms.
So before we start, Maddie, there's a question from Letitia that says, will participants get university credit transcript with this program? Okay, it's first of all, it's not a program. It's an individualized district way in which the resources of the district or the LEA are supporting the adult learning. Now, there are some districts that actually do have a program that has university credit. There's also programs that do Midas credit. And so Salt Lake is an example of the courses that we developed 6 years ago. And they're connected to SUU. And they have to follow what SUU is. And so we're redesigning that because the research ends up being too theoretical. I mean, it's very, very academic. I think SUU ends up having coursework and UVU, and they implement more practicum based, and they integrate it. Well, they try to integrate it into the academic courses. So it just depends when you, like for an example, Granite and also Jordan, when they do, Jordan is with SUU and Granite is with Weber. So when they finish, oftentimes, and this is an option, and this is what Monticello does, they'll just send an official letter and say, with the name of the teacher and the cactus ID, and they'll send it to licensing so it's processed. They send it to me for the final approval, and then those people on that list get the ESL endorsement. They're awarded that. So once you actually see, after we finish this, the 7 pathways for the ESL endorsement, it's based on the districts deciding what they want to do that will most benefit their students. Right. I mean, that's really the point. And I'm just looking at this. Someone says, who can see your messages, recording on? When the chat, when anything comes up in the chat, then I'll respond. Or if it's a question for Maddie or any of the teachers, I'll interrupt, or at the end, I'll say something. Okay. Okay, Maddie, take it away.
All right, hello everyone. Thanks again for having me. As mentioned, I'm Maddie, a proud teacher of Monticello Academy, and I'm posting my project, my ASL portfolio in the chat right now. If you want to take a snoop at that, if I have to refer to it. But I guess I'll just get right to the core of it. I like that Lindsay started off with the work's never done, because this was a project that started years ago when I first started at Monticello Academy, and I drew from my prior experiences to create something that was meaningful for me and my students. So it started with document-based questions. 4 years ago, our test scores were really low for providing evidence for claims and opinions, and we spent a year all working together to using document-based questions to scaffold the students to A, make a claim about something, and B, support it with evidence, and do so coherently. So that was really tough my first year because I had no idea where to start. So I drew from a little bit of background that I had, which was in psychotherapy, and in theory just used sentence stems to help scaffold the students to have meaningful interactions. So from the get-go, the hope was, hey, how can I use sentence stems and document-based questions to foster meaningful interaction in the classroom? And after doing this awesome project, I realized the night before it actually aligned with something totally different. So I changed my goal the night before our presentation, and I thought it worked pretty well. The standard I focused on was help students develop academic language proficiency. So on slide, let's see, on slide, Jeepers, which one do we have? Oh, on slide 2, you'll see that I actually have my focus students portfolios, which is the artifacts and evidence for everything we did. And it might be easier if I just share my screen. So let's do that.
Yeah, sharing your screen, I think you can do
Okay.
that. That would be great.
More. Okay. There we go. Okay. So I have 2 students here. Both came to me my first year teaching, and they really didn't speak any English at all. This is Nathan Medina. This was his original portfolio, and he was a really talented artist, but I noticed that when it came to describing and critiquing his artwork, which is a really important process in the classroom, he struggled. Likewise for Yes Leet, a wonderful student we had who came to our school, or who also struggled creating artwork or describing her artwork, yet she was really, really talented. So I took the idea of this document-based question and was just like, hey, how can I get the kids just like actually having meaningful interactions? And I used something that is commonly called the I feel statement and tweaked it to essentially be a condensed document-based question, and created a series of sentence stems for the students to come to use when they're articulating, describing their work. So I was really excited to get the students reading and writing more. And I thought just by having sentence stems, it'd be easy, but it wasn't. It took probably about 3 years to get the results that I was looking for, which is really just surface level, basic, describing how you think and feel about your artwork. So let's take a look at the manual I threw together. And here we go. Cool. So this is my glossary for my writing assignments and prompts. And in short, I just create sentence stems for the students to describe how they think and feel about artwork. And it's really put together in a way where it is a document-based question. You have an opinion and you support it, your opinion with evidence, and you in the end link it, commonly called a TEAL formula that we use in writing: thesis, evidence, evidence, link. But really it's just a space to make meaningful interaction not so foreign for the students. And it's pretty fun. I have a lot of adjectives for them to refer to, and it's really just a space for my students and I to align when we're talking about analysis. So I pretty much unpacked everything that I thought they needed to know about critiquing artwork, and create this space for them to go to draw their ideas from. And at its core, as mentioned, it was really all about facilitating meaningful instruction. But in the end, I'm like, the night before, I'm reflecting and looking at all this stuff, I really realized it was more about scaffolding academic language. So it's kind of cool. It hits 2 nails in the head for what I was really focusing on. And a big part of this is providing evidence in the students' work. So another big part of this was creating it like a space for the students to refer to each other's artwork and I ended up creating essentially a slideshow with the students' links of their own bodies of work, their living portfolios, where they're adding to their work and revising their work throughout the year. And at the end of the year, they have a culminating project where their final project is really like their whole body of work. Sorry, I'm trying to change my screen for a second here. But it was really powerful to be part of that reflective process. And in the end, last minute, change my idea, at least for my initial goal. And that was really all about academic language. So it's been a work in progress over the years. And what I was really passionate about was not only integrating artistic language, but emotional language as well. Because I felt that's where the students struggled, not the most, but they definitely struggled articulating and describing how they think and feel. So yeah, I have student examples, emotion wheels, graphic organizers for how to scaffold artistic academic language through the elements and principles of art. We go over adjectives, and it's just an awesome resource for the students to help them build A, meaningful interactions, but B, document what they've been doing throughout the year in a digital portfolio so they can reflect it and look at their work and revise it throughout the year. So I feel like that's it at its core. Would you like me to show any student samples or expand on what I'm saying?
Why don't we open to questions?
Okay.
So I'm not going to do it in the chat. So you're going to have to just unmute and then say, Maddie, I have a question for you. And also I think we can make this handbook for critiquing. It's a manual for critiquing art, and then how you scaffold academic language. So we can figure out how to send this out. We'll send the link out so that people can, is that okay, Maddie?
Yeah.
Access to it.
It should be in the chat.
Yeah, it is in the chat. And I think it was Lindsay who made it available because some people were having a hard time getting access to it. So is there anyone who has a question?
I have a question.
Okay, Michelle.
Hi, Maddie. Thanks for sharing. I was wondering, how did you teach your students how to back up their claims with evidence?
So the way I scaffolded it was on slide, I want to say 2 and 3. I started with graphic organizers where the students would draw different types of commonly used language. These are things they learn in like elementary school, but they just forget to integrate it. So the way I teach it is sentence stems, graphic organizers, and then they would have to use their graphic organizers to answer the sentence stems. So if they were confused or still didn't really master the language, I'd say, all right, well, I see you have a claim here. This is a strong work of art. Let's support it with some evidence, okay? So we would pull from our graphic organizers, and I would simply point, okay, what are you seeing? And they would point to maybe line work. Okay, so there's a strong use of line work here. Describe what you see and your opinion behind it. So it was also a school-wide goal where we were using teal formulas, thesis, evidence, link in paragraphs, paragraph form, just to help have a unified approach with it. And I just kind of condensed it rather than making them paragraphs. I condensed this teal idea into like a small, dense little paragraph sentence stem. So if that answers your question, it's really just graphic organizers and sentence stems.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Hi, Maddie. I have a question. When you were going through this process, were there any of the standards that when you read the standard, you said, I have no idea what this is or where to find information about it, and then explain how you went about finding out that information?
Well, what I like about this is that you have choice. So I just did a process of elimination and just focused on things that were important to me. And at first, it's really tempting just to go for easy ones like, oh, I've got this, I can do that. But when you slow down and really read the standards, there's some good stuff in there that gets you excited. So, you have a ton of options. And part of that's just having autonomy and choice and what you want to do, rather than like, I don't know what I'm doing. Find the ones that resonate with you and then just expand on that.
And so where did you look for either information or guidance as you were developing your learning?
Well, Lindsay's my right-hand gal pal. She's super nuanced in what she does. So regular feedback from her was helpful. And I think really just relying on my professional learning community. If I was struggling, I could go to my other art teacher. But in the end, it's really about trusting yourself and being passionate about it, because I think the second that you're not excited about something, that's when you struggle. But when you find those standards that are like, oh, wow, this is good, I like this, you tend to make it work.
Thank you.
So Jenny was from Box Elder and Michelle was from Salt Lake. So I'm just going to say something about the framework for competency-based. And some people are putting personal questions in about their own experiences related to what they now need to do. And that's a question you would just email me. It's not here for this group because we're doing something different. So people should feel perfectly comfortable emailing me any personal question they have in relationship to this. So let me say that if you look at the USBE competency-based, personalized competency-based education goals and the way in which it's organized is about student agency or learner agency, right? And that's what Maddie's talking about. Maddie's talking about the way in which motivation intrinsically is connected to goals for the benefit of students, right? So it's a totally different way of framing it, as well as I think we're gonna end up this section because we have Wasatch, and this will give you a better idea also of different processes in different LEAs. So Monticello has their process, which has influenced, quite a lot of people across the state. And it is terrifying because no one is telling you what to read. They're not saying you have to read this article to get this grade so that you can, get this, I don't know, credit or something, because, you've been in a class for seat time. The Carnegie unit is a very old, very, very traditional way of sitting in a classroom and getting information and then giving it back to teachers. Okay, so personalized competency-based education is not that. And so adults usually relate to something that's intrinsically motivating and immediately relevant to their classroom more than having somebody else tell them what they need to know, even though it's challenging and terrifying. Okay, so Lindsay, do you want to, Maddie, thank you so much. And I know we're trying to figure out a time for, the gang to go out to lunch. So it's on my list. Thank you so much, Maddie. Lindsay, do you want to do the final kind of wrap up in relationship to
Sure.
portfolio exhibitions and collaborative work and support that you provide for the cohort?
Sure. Yeah, we do have some resources for teachers that don't know where to get started, but having Maddie spend most of his time learning about very basic early literacy standards would not have been the best use of his time. So had he focused a lot of his time on that first domain in Tesol about just the basics of phonics, it probably wouldn't have led to something that is quite as comprehensive as this. So where he is coming from, I love, like you were talking about, that agency where he gets to really find what he's interested in, what's going to be useful to him as an educator. Just like for me as an administrator going through a program like this, what's going to be useful for me educating adults versus spending my time doing just specific readings or specific research on things that are not going to be as effective in my day-to-day. And so having the base is really important, but the parts that you put the goals into, I always tell them, if you don't know what something is, look it up first, because you might actually know it. Once you find the definition, you might go, oh, that's what that is. You don't need to set a goal around that, because you just need to kind of do some basic learning. But one thing that I think is so essential is the idea of taking these successes that the teachers find and then finding ways to replicate them. So having Maddie talk about this process, it's not just for the art room. It really is for every classroom. How can we build more processes like this? And how can Maddie talk to other teachers and other educators so that they can learn from him and the success that he saw in these processes? Because they're all very based in language. And I think that that's the most exciting thing for the teachers, when they're able to share those successes and other teachers are then able to develop their own ideas of how they're going to move forward. So it really is just about learning how to learn and learning how to continue building goals for yourself as a lifelong learner. And so Maddie's done, but Maddie's not done. Maddie's going to continue to mentor other teachers. He's going to continue to work just on his personal goals with his students. And as he keeps going, he now has the framework in his mind of how to continue that learning, not just with ESL students, but with everything. And so I think that's the most important thing, is it's like a retraining on how to set these goals and then how to meet these goals for your own personal needs. So I think that that's all I have to say about that right now, Christelle.
Thanks, Maddie, and thanks, Lindsay. One of the key things that we did at the University of Utah when Lindsay stuck it out and we worked together was to really do a tuning protocol to help teachers get clear about what their goal really was and the kind of evidence that they could actually create. So collaborative. So sometimes people think that this is really such an individualized process that it doesn't include the entire learning community, and it does. And then the other process is that Lindsay facilitates very well is actually the success analysis protocol in relationship to how the final exhibition for the portfolio is done. So those are some key scaffolding for the adult learner to feel more confident in really identifying the kind of evidence that's making a huge difference for their students based on what they're actually learning. These are all the principles of adult learning.
And Christelle, we do have all of those protocols and all of those things that we're always willing to share. And if you're ever interested in coming to one of our meetings to see what those protocols or some of those conversations look like, we're always an open door.
Thanks, Lindsay. And thanks for being courageous 5 years ago. I really appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to go to Wasatch, and we're going to actually start with Eric. And he's just going to give us a little bit of an overview of his experience at the final exhibition or anything else that he wants to say. And then he'll introduce Ellie, and then Ellie will say a little bit about her experience. And then we'll go, I think, to the two teachers and their presentations. Okay, Eric, take it away.
Well, first of all, thank you.
Maddie, could you stop sharing?
For this opportunity. From my experience, I need to thank Christelle and Ellie, who've really kind of spearheaded this in our district, and also Monticello, whether you know it or not. Christelle kind of showed us a lot of what the other districts were doing, and we looked at and stole a lot from your experience, whether you know it or not. So thank you so much for that, and the other districts that have kind of blazed this trail. So we are the beneficiary of all of your work that have moved forward with it. So when I was hearing about it from Christelle, and we were excited about this competency based, I'm like, oh, this is really cool. We need to do this. And then I went to the portfolios and watched our amazing teachers give the portfolios, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. We really need to do this. And so I'm really excited to have Ellie and our teachers just kind of share their experience with you. But from my perspective as a district administrator, one of the things that we've been really trying to work on and have a long way to go is really make ELD not just part of the day, but really the whole day for our students. And I think this competency-based endorsement is going to push us towards that. Or as Lindsay's already said, just really having these teachers look at goals and have it be data based, and so they can see those wins. It really builds a sense of achievement and confidence in this. And I think that just grows, not within those teachers, but we're seeing it grow across departments and across schools as we have concrete things to share that this is making a difference, which is probably the most exciting part for me. So I'll shut up now and get to the important part. So Ellie Gallagher is one of our district specialists over dual language immersion, also ELD. And then I'll have her and she'll introduce our amazing teachers, Sydney and Jennifer, that I'm going to share with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm hoping Jennifer's getting on. She is at a different location, so she's trying, but Sydney is here.
I'm already here.
So, oh, there you are. Okay, yay. Whew, I was sweating bullets. Okay. So basically, I did like the behind the scenes work, which we know all good teaching happens. And I learned most of what I was doing from Lindsay. So thank you, Lindsay. We have a tiny different process. We do start with the USB overview course, which is asynchronous. Teachers do that course, and then we get together and we start working on defining the goals and deciding specifically which goals would be best for each of them to focus. So we do have a learning cohort. And then after they take that first course, they do their portfolio. And we are fortunate that we have an instructional coach in all of our buildings. When I started looking into our instructional coaches, though, not all of them were highly qualified for teaching ESL students. So this next year, some of our coaches are actually in the cohort, which is exciting. But we did have a few. So myself and a couple other coaches, we helped with the portfolio process, which included meeting with the teachers, helping them refine their goals, and then deciding what they were going to do in their classroom, and I called them learning activities. So what were they going to do to meet their goal? How were they going to get there? And that could have been reading books, watching videos, things like that. And then of course, coaching. And the coaches would come in and they would do at a minimum one coaching cycle. A full cycle was a planning meeting, collecting data during the lesson. And that would be the data that the teacher wanted the coach to collect. And then they would reflect on the data and then make changes and then do another cycle. And then finally, at the end, this is where we're a little different. Wasatch has a high percentage of Latinx students who are native Spanish speakers, and a lot of them are are also classified as ESL. So at the very end, we have all of our teachers take the DLI Foundations course to learn about bilingual education. And I think both the teachers can talk about how that influenced how they think as well. At the culmination of all of that, they presented to a panel, which was a district director, a college professor, and a practicing ESL teacher, and Christelle was there as well. And then they got feedback immediately from the panel. And like Lindsay said, I think our teachers would agree that they're not done. They're simply just on the next step. And so, yeah, that's our process. Like Lindsay, I'm happy to share what we have. We have some things that I would like to work on. We were not as good at using the tuning protocol and the success protocol. So those are some areas of improvement for us. But without further ado, I think the best way for you to understand the impact of how the competency-based endorsement has affected our instruction is to hear from our teachers. So Sydney Mitterling is a middle school English teacher, and she, I think, was looped into this from her instructional coach, who was also doing the endorsement. And I can't wait for you to hear. I was in tears when I heard her presentation. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it too. So Sydney, take it away.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, Sydney, and you can share your screen, I think.
Yes, let's do that.
It's nice to see you again. I just love what you
Yeah, nice to see you too. See if I
And-
can
and,
find.
and thanks, Ellie, for inviting me. It was really important.
Let's try this. All right, I don't know how to really do this, so we're gonna see if this is. Oh,
See at the bottom where it says share screen.
yeah. Oh, it's telling me I need system permission. Let's see if we can do that. Oh, it might kick me out and then I'll have to get back on for some reason. I don't know why
Okay,
it's
so we could
not
switch.
letting-
Jennifer, did you check your share settings?
So I checked the one you sent me, but the district has taken away our ability to change stuff in settings. So this might be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like, it's not letting me do it either. So
Oh, no.
Let me try mine real quick. I want to see if mine works.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, there
That
we
works?
go. There we go. All right. So Sydney, go ahead and exit,
Okay.
like leave and come back and see if we can get it fixed. I think there's a setting. I'll forward it to you in email. Okay, so we'll switch. Jennifer is also a middle school teacher, but she teaches film, which I was really excited to have her in the program because she teaches a different topic. So we'll let her share. And same thing, it's really powerful, powerful learning for the teacher and impactful for the students.
Thanks, Ellie. Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, happy to be here. All right. So there is a link to the presentation, the QR code that will be there again at the end. So my name is Jennifer Brimley. I teach at Timpanogos Middle School in Heber. We have grades 6 through 8, and I teach Film 1, Film 2, TV broadcasting, movie making, STEM, and a house leaders class. We have kind of a Harry Potter house system, and I have a class for the house leaders. I've been in education for 15 years. Before education, I was in IT, and my last 2 years of that, I worked in the front office of a high school as a site tech. I spent 5 years teaching high school science, 5 years middle school science, and then the last 3 years I've been the film teacher at TMS. So TMS has about 22% minority. The biggest minority is about 20% Hispanic Latino, and most of those are Spanish speakers. And we have a very large percentage of native Spanish speakers. We have a really good DLI program. And so that's a really big, I think about 50% of our school is in the DLI program. So it's a pretty big influence where we are. In my film classes, in the 4 levels of film, I have 104 students. In all of those, I have 2 English learners and 4.8, 4.9 WIDA scores for those. I had 55 students in my STEM classes this last semester with 3 English learners. 2 of them were in the 5s. One of them was a 2.5 WIDA score, and I'll tell you more about him here in a minute. And then my house leaders class used to be cool to care this last year. I had 18 students with only 1 English learner who's been exited and has been monitored. So not a lot of English learners, even though we still have about 50% in that DLI program. So Christian is that 2.5 WIDA score from my STEM class. He was in 8th grade this last year, and he came to the US from Mexico last year. He was placed at Wasatch High School in 9th grade because of his age. But there were some questions about his age and his abilities. So they moved him back to middle school at the end of October. And then I met him when he started at my STEM class at the beginning of January. My initial impressions were that he has very, very limited English. He had to have a friend help him ask how to use the bathroom. And so just super limited English, brand new. His WIDA composite was 2.5, really, really low listening, speaking, reading. He scored a lot higher in writing, but there were some questions about that as well, that maybe he had some resources or something like that. In my experience, I don't think his writing level does match that level. So in the Tesol standards, I assessed myself in a pre-assessment, and I felt like I met the standards in assessment, but in all the other domains, I felt like I was close, but I wasn't quite there. It was really interesting to read through those rubrics and see what exactly proficient looked like. And I will still be working toward that. I think I am now proficient at some of these, but I still have some work to do. So my first goal, let me see if I can move these pictures because it's not, can't see it. Okay, so my first goal was that once a month or more, we'll make a Highlander news segment that features students of different cultures and languages. And we'll use those segments to recruit a more diverse group of students into the film classes. So this last semester, I had 22 students, 21 were white and 1 was Hispanic. And that's pretty typical of the last few semesters of that class, mostly white students. So my goal is to recruit a more diverse group that more accurately reflects our school demographics. Second goal, through increased opportunities for students to listen and speak using academic language, students will listen to opinions and thoughts of others, even if different from their own, and express their own thoughts and ideas to the group. And then we measure those skills at the end of each project. And the goal is that everyone will be 100% proficient or move up 1 level on the rubric. Third goal, I'll select resources that are appropriate to students' developmental language and content area abilities using appropriate L1 by building L1 content library to improve pre-emergent and developing students' performance by 1 grade level. So because I teach film, we don't really have a lot of resources. There's not a district curriculum for it. So we kind of piece together what we have, and I work really closely with the other film teacher in the district to do that. And everything we've had before now has been in English. So I am very slowly working on building that library. So as part of this program, we did coaching cycles. So we'd have a pre-conference with the instructional coach to review our goals and what we're going to do for instruction and resources that I could use during my instruction. Then the instructional coach observes class and makes recordings, records data. And then we have a post-conference where we discuss that data. So in the first coaching cycle, we're focusing on goal 2, which is communication skills. And all of these coaching cycles happen in my STEM class because that's where Christian was. So we were in the simple machines unit. I had been supporting Christian's learning with a Spanish speaking peer because I don't really have Spanish resources for the most part. And we were doing the simple machines unit. So when the instructional coach came in to visit, the kids were building simple machines, or they were building a Rube Goldberg machine using simple machines. And Christian was in a group of, I believe, 5 boys. And Heidi was able to tell me about some communication issues she saw in Christian's group. Classroom teachers know as soon as you walk away from a group, the dynamics change. So as soon as I walked away and I wasn't close to them, they had some issues with, they were telling Christian to sit and calling him good dog and things like that. And it made me pretty upset. And so I was able to use that information and coach his group on how to more respectfully work together. And it worked a lot better after that. And he was actually able to help his group solve some problems that Heidi watched. So Heidi, the instructional coach, was watching them try to do something, and they were failing over and over and over, and they were telling Christian to sit and be quiet. And then he finally just broke through, and he was able to get the thing working, and he was able to show his group that he had value. So being able to help with that communication really, really helped the entire group, and it was really fun to watch. On the first group project, his group members rated him as approaching, and I still can't see the other one because, oh, there it is, beginning and approaching for his communication skills. But by the last group project, almost every group member had moved him up one level to approaching and meeting, which is huge for a brand new English speaker. I really saw him come out of his shell through some of these group projects, and it was really fun to watch. All right, coaching cycle 2 focuses on my L1 resources in my coding unit. So we were coding on iPads using Apple's Swift Playground app. With Heidi, I was able to find out that this app does support Spanish. So I was able to help Christian change his language from English to Spanish. It only changed the instructions for each one of the puzzles, but that was enough to get him going and really help him be able to solve some of the problems. At the beginning, when Heidi was observing, he was basically sitting there staring at his screen, not doing much. But once he was able to get the instructions in Spanish, he was able to complete some puzzles on his own without help. And that was really, really neat to watch. Coaching cycle 3 focuses on goals 2 and 3, which is communication and L1 resources. We were in the egg drop unit for this one. So the students were working with a partner to build a device to keep a raw egg safe when I got up on the roof and threw it off the roof, which is one of my most favorite units. It makes a huge mess. It's great because middle school, that's what we do. So before we started this unit, I worked with Heidi to identify some ways I can teach academic language. This unit has a lot of heavy physics terms. And so I needed to have Christian front load some of those terms before we started. So I worked with his ELL teacher to come up with some activities he could do for about a week before we started that unit, so he would understand those words first. Then when we started with that unit with the whole class, the first thing we did was go through all of those words again and showed pictures and definitions, and we played some vocabulary games, so everybody had a good basis of those vocabulary words before we started. The very first assignment in this unit is a Gizmo Simulation, and then there's a worksheet that goes with it, and they're pretty high academically, and they are only available in English. And so front loading some of those vocabulary terms and using cognates was really important for Christian to be able to understand. So I had him sitting with a Spanish speaking peer, and about 5 minutes or so after we started this activity, his partner was called to the office and he was gone, seemed like forever. So Heidi was working one-on-one with Christian while I was bouncing around trying to support everybody. And Heidi was able to get him to pretty much finish most of the worksheet, and he was understanding it and he was using his resources. So when his partner came back, Christian was actually able to teach his partner about what he was learning and what he had already done. And that was a huge breakthrough for Christian, that he felt like he could do it on his own. And he was able to really contribute a lot more to the class after that. So that was a really key moment in his development. For my first goal, we didn't really do a coaching cycle because can't really come in and observe this. In previous semesters, we'd done at most 1 to 2 Highlander News segments about LAA activities. But this semester we did multiple segments featuring teachers and students and culture-based activities. So we did a lot better on the news with this. But in the future, I will continue to increase more coverage of different cultures and different people in the school, because it should not just be my 20-something kids that are on the news all the time. And so that will continue in the future, and I will use my film classes to recruit a more diverse audience and a more diverse, or not diverse audience, a more diverse group of kids that will be on the news. So in the past, I started teaching in California, and I actually did an EL endorsement in California, but that was almost 15 years ago now. And what I learned from then to now is that all of the research has flipped. When I learned in California, they taught us only English, no Spanish at all whatsoever. And through this program, I really learned that students need to use their L1 and cognates to really understand and help each other and work together. And it was really a beautiful process to see that happen. I've kind of figured that out on my own over the years, but I kind of held back a little bit because what I had been taught stuck. But now that I know differently, I'm good to go, and I think my students will get a much better experience in my class. I just finished that ML endorsement. I'm currently doing my admin program, so in the future, possibly instructional coach, maybe an admin. I'm reasonably certain I will be coaching multilingual students this next year, which will be a really fun opportunity. I think that's it. Questions?
Thanks, Jennifer. That was wonderful. So if you have questions for Jennifer, I'm just going to do a couple of clarifying things. One is L1 is the first language, right? And all the research related to acquisition of multiple languages says if you're literate in your first language, it's much easier to acquire other languages. I work with a student on independent study, and he is literate in 4 languages and just ended up getting a 6 on his WIDA, and as a sophomore ended up getting a 3 on the AP World History. So these are examples of the kind of scaffolding that can happen around kids' abilities, obviously for, really high level work. Cognates, again, are really important. I think Wasatch is probably one of the districts that does it incredibly well. LIA is Latinos in Action. They have a very strong program in that. So if you have a question for Jennifer, please just unmute yourself, and we'll just do a little wait time before we go to Sydney.
I have a question. I don't know if it's specifically for Jennifer, but maybe you can answer that for me. So at our 2 campuses, one campus really does have quite a few Spanish and Portuguese speakers. The other campus is Vietnamese, Chinese, Hindi, all different other languages. And I've noticed a lot in these different presentations, there's, okay, well, we have Spanish translator. We're depending a lot on, well, we did this in Spanish and we have a Spanish glossary and we put them next to this friend that speaks the same language as them. Have you encountered situations where you don't have a convenient translation and you don't have a convenient person that can just sit there and translate for them and, tell you they need the bathroom or whatever? How are you addressing those students to help them overcome their challenges and feel a sense of growth?
So
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay. So in my classroom, I've had that, and actually Christian's friend that he sat next to, Angel, he's really not a very good Spanish speaker. So he was not a great translator. And so in the past, I've used resources like Google Translate that just can help move that along.
Yeah, I think the other issue in high school, I taught sheltered government and economics with a range of languages. So the question is the way in which you scaffold instruction. You can use PSYOP methods or whatever to make content comprehensible is really important. And it doesn't really matter what their native language is, as well as how you scaffold and structure the way in which learning happens based on something very specific, right? And also creating that safe environment. The other thing is, if you're asking questions, make sure you say your name, because we only see like, you know, either a code or not the first name or anything like that. And we don't know which school or which LEA you're from.
Sorry, it's Michelle Petrolsky from Hawthorne Academy.
Okay, great, thanks. Michelle, I think I'm going to be working more closely with Hawthorne this year because of your allocation for, you know, Title III funds. So we can have a conversation offline. Other questions for Jennifer? Especially because she focuses on different kinds of subjects and CTE. You know, I think it's a really great example to have someone from that field in CTE, then have an art teacher, and then the next person is going to talk about their English language arts class. So any other questions before we move on? Okay, so Jennifer, do you want to quit sharing and we'll see if we can get Sydney to share? Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Should be up top.
There we go.
Yep, you got it.
All right, let's see if this works. Everyone hold your breath. Okay. Oh, I think it's gonna work.
Yay.
Hey. Okay, good. I'm like, I did something right. Hi, everyone. Like they said, my name is Sydney Mitterling. I'm about to head into my 9th year teaching at Rocky Mountain Middle School in Heber City, Utah. I've taught 8th grade English there since I graduated from SUU in 2014. And throughout my years there, I've grown as a professional. I've been able to learn. I've been able to get my master's in English, and most recently have my teaching practices and philosophies drastically changed because of the ML endorsement course. So before this course, I unfortunately had no knowledge whatsoever of how to best teach multilingual learners. I had no knowledge of language acquisition or best practices for ML students. I was that teacher that in the halls would complain, if the student doesn't speak English, why are they in my English class? Unfortunately, that was my thought process. But through this class, this case study, and these students, my attitude has drastically changed. And I've learned that it is in my power to assist ML students to help develop their superpowers, which is exactly what they're doing. They are developing these superpowers, these amazing abilities that are going to take them very far in life. So my case study, I chose 5 students for my case study: Esmeralda, Hector, Ricardo, Kevin, and Emiliano. The 4 boys were in my 4th period English class right before lunch, so they were always starving. They would come in with piles of food. But Esmeralda was in my 1st period class. So pictured here are their beginning of the year scores. So we have their 2021 WIDA scores in the middle, and then their RISE interim score. So the RISE test, what they took either at the beginning of the fall or Emiliano when he joined us halfway through. But what is not shown here is the grit that these students showed all year long. And in the past, when I've done this presentation, this is where I got emotional because these kids changed my life, but I will not do that today. So no. Esmeralda was a member of LAA at our school, and she always took accountability for her learning. She was the most quiet student I've ever had, but she wanted to excel and she worked really, really hard. Ricardo would slouch into class with a hat and a hoodie. And while it was a running joke for me always to yell at him to pull up his pants because they were always around his knees, you could just tell that this kid wanted to do well, but he didn't want you to know he wanted to do well. Hector was the smallest of the boys. He was very joyful, very energetic. He always had a smile on his face. I dubbed him Hector the Helpful because he wanted to help everybody. He wanted all of his friends to do well. And when he would finish with a task, instead of choosing to have some free time or some reading time, he wanted to help. So he would always choose to help his classmates Kevin was and is the sweetest kid that I've ever met in my entire life. He, every day, the beginning of class, when I would welcome students to my classroom, he would yell out, "Yay." And he wasn't doing it sarcastically, as lovely middle schoolers tend to do. He was honestly so excited to learn and be there. And it just really helped pick up the energy of our class. Emiliano, he came into class halfway through the year, and he started out kind of a little too cool for school. But he quickly saw that that's not how we function in our classroom. And he saw that we worked hard and we expected, had high expectations, and he rose to that occasion. And by the end of the year, he was the best of friends with all those boys in fourth period. So each of these students worked so hard all year, and they changed my life and my teaching practices. So my goals for this course, I focused on 2 domains, domain 1, language, and domain 3, planning, implementing, and managing instruction. I chose these goals because after further inspection, I realized these were the areas I felt the weakest in. And a lot of them, I was like, yes, I meet that, or I'm approaching it, or I'm way below that. So these are the 2 that I really felt that I needed the most improvement in. So for my goals, I decided that for unit vocabulary in term 3, I will provide a variety of research-based instructional techniques to assist multilingual students to understand and use the unit vocabulary appropriately in spoken and written language by connecting Spanish cognates to English cognates. And then goal 2, for each lesson during my term 3 unit, I will add an ELL support strategy connected to lesson content to allow for a supportive learning environment for ELLs. So those are my 2 goals going forward. And the research, the why of why I created those goals came from the first half of our endorsement program. We did a lot of reading. We did a lot of not necessarily book studies, but article studies. And it was really important for me to do that because I had no basis. I had no baseline instruction for language acquisition. So this was the research where I took my my goals and my steps moving forward. So this was the first time I implemented an ELL strategy in my classroom. I connected the Spanish cognates or synonyms with the help of my coach, Ellie, to each of our unit vocabulary words. And as a class, we worked through the Nearpod, and the same Spanish connections were present in this. This is where I first started seeing, oh, this could lead to something amazing. I had little Hector, the helpful, who I had a paraeducator in fourth period with me, and she would just kind of roam around those boys and just check in with them and make sure that everything was okay. And we were going over ethos, logos, and pathos in regards to rhetoric devices. And the paraeducator, she said, oh, well, this is logos. This is what logos means. And Hector went, no, lógica, logos, not this one. And he connected the synonyms, the cognates, and he corrected her. And so, and just seeing him like light up and kind of like, oh, my watch. Seeing him kind of light up and be like, oh, I corrected a teacher, an authority figure. He was really excited about that. So that I was kind of like, oh, we might be on to something here. Something might come of this practice here. So that was a really cool thing to first witness. After that initial instruction, I went further with vocabulary practice. My first coaching cycle consisted of students participating in a movement activity where they would mix around the room, stop and pair up with a partner. Students then participated in a vocabulary activity where they had to explain the definition without actually using the vocabulary term. And their partner was to give the correct term to match the definition or explanation to them. So the desired outcome was to see if students could define the vocabulary definition that included the attached Spanish cognate. It went smoothly considering all the various parts together. I felt that there was a built-in accountability that helped set the students up for best participation and success. However, I did learn that I need to specifically tell or model for students how to coach students through when they don't get the answers right away. That way they don't just kind of just shortcut to it. So I need to embed coaching tips and further sentence frames for students to coach each other through it to come to the correct answer instead of just giving up and giving the correct answer. We then took a common formative assessment, and these are the results of that. So this shows that using this strategy allowed students to comprehend academic vocabulary at a faster and higher rate than without. So Hector, he got 100% on the first attempt, which doesn't happen. And then Esmeralda, Ricardo, and Kevin all got passing or above the second attempt. And usually this is a place where I have to call these kids in for intervention 4 to 5 times before they can get it. And by then I feel like a lot of it's just, I guessed it correct. I know it wasn't this one because I did it last time, so it has to be this one. So the fact that they could get it on the second attempt or even the first attempt really showed me that this fast tracked their progress on an incomprehensible level for me. The second cycle that we did focused around an evidence workshop, and this was the coaching cycle that was a game changer for me. That feeling that you get in the classroom when you're on fire, the kids are on fire, you have this like symbiotic back and forth flow of knowledge. I felt that. And it, you know, it's why we do what we do. That's kind of like we're all addicted to that feeling. The lesson being observed centered around this evidence workshop where students were given the text of a Rockwell painting and asked to examine and explain evidence to support the claims that were put in front of them. The research practice I implemented was the use of Spanish cognates and synonyms to help students with vocabulary, because it's really more about vocabulary implementation at this point than it was about selecting and providing evidence. So I also implemented a language goal to ensure students were using the vocabulary. And before this course, I didn't even know language goals were a thing. So, but as soon as they were revealed to me, I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So the language goal we implemented was I can use academic argument vocabulary in conversation with a partner using sentence frames. So I had sentence stems for scaffolding. The lesson observation went splendidly. I felt very purposeful with my engagement strategies, and I think students responded well to the lesson content and emphasis on the vocabulary usage. So this data specifically shows the number of times the case study students verbally used the vocabulary word. I learned that I need to purposely provide instances where my ELL students can interact and communicate with each other and with other non-Spanish speakers so they can practice their English. I also learned not to let my ELL kids hide and to bring them purposely into participation. And what was really cool about this particular cycle was that I had students that weren't in my case study, that were ELL students, that were volunteering to participate, and they don't do that. These kids that were volunteering to participate, they were okay to be back row Joes. Like they were okay to just kind of chill in the background. And when they were raising their hands to participate, when I wasn't even really asking for that, it blew my mind how it just created this environment where they felt supported and comfortable enough to take some risks and to put themselves out there. So this was their fourth common formative assessment. And Esmeralda and Hector, Ricardo, Kevin, and Emiliano all passed, some on the first attempt, some on the second attempt, but still it takes 4 or 5 to 6 times for these kids to actually pack. And every single time I pull them into my room for intervention, they're like, ugh. So for them to get it on the first or second attempt, they were ecstatic and just so excited for themselves and for their progress. My last observation lesson consisted of vocabulary surrounding literary elements as part of a spiral review before our RISE testing at the end of the year. So as other times, the vocabulary had a cognate synonym connection to Spanish. Students were observed while taking a Kahoot, and that required them to identify and match terms and definitions. Not only was there a Spanish cognate or synonym present, but comprehensible input was connected to each question through picture form. And that was really cool. You know, you hear it a lot. That's probably everybody's go-to, comprehensible input. But it's very powerful because I even had a kid who he got one of the answers wrong. And the kid next to him was like, you didn't look at the picture, like that's what it's there for. So it was kind of cool to be like, okay, yeah, some people do look at that picture. And so, you know, you don't just spend all this time trying to find good comprehensible input. It is being looked at and used the way you want it to. So that was kind of cool. The results were surprising to me. Some students that usually struggle tremendously in my class were getting a result of 60% or higher. And even those students who got like half correct, that was still better than what they would have achieved without the Spanish connection and comprehensible input. And while I did a little bit more digging, I realized that I had overlooked the competitive nature that Kahoot inevitably brings out in your students. And they're more focused on quickness and the speed than they are the accuracy of their answer. So when I dug deeper into the individual questions of which ones they got wrong, I noticed it's the one they spent less than 0.5 seconds on that they got wrong. So taking that into account, I need to change up that format and that format way, because the Kahoot kind of brings out more of their competitive sides. So RISE results, these are considered the ultimate results in our district. And these students wanted so badly to do well. I'm pretty sure Hector the Helpful just made himself sick over it. He really struggled at the end of every testing session. He'd come to me and be like, it's really, really, really hard. I don't know how to do it. I can't do it. So we had multiple pep talks and he kind of psyched himself out. But they took their time. They took what reading notes that they could, and they constantly communicated to me how they were feeling, when they were nervous, if they were doing okay. And all but one of the case study students showed progress. Now, what I was really excited about were their WIDA scores at the end of the year. So every student showed growth. From Esmeralda all the way to Kevin, years worth of growth right there. And it was so exciting to see that, and I couldn't be prouder of them. So over the last few months, or coming up on a year now, I had the opportunity to attend several conferences and learn from Dr. Luis Cruz, in addition to the DLI Foundations course. And when discussing the underserved students of our school, which unfortunately is a lot of our ELL students, Dr. Cruz said something that made a lasting impact on me. He said, we're all in the same storm, but we are in different boats. And his harrowing statistics on the poverty cycle only makes what I've learned throughout this course and educational journey more urgent and important for me to help break that cycle. So to do so, I will continue to grow professionally. Like it's been mentioned today, the course may be over, but the learning and the growing and the coming up with best practices and trying new things in the classroom never ends. I will continue to grow professionally so that I can better serve the ML students that I teach. And I will do this by acting on the results of the study and continue to implement best practices. I've also committed to be on the ELL task force that our school is implementing this coming up year. And I'm so excited to share with them what I've learned and to learn from them in return, and to bring that back to my classroom so it can benefit my students. The biggest thing is that I learned that learning how to best serve ML students doesn't just benefit ML students, it benefits all my students and me as an educator as well. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, Sydney, thank you so much. So you got a thumbs up from Lindsay. So if you could stop sharing, and then we'll see everybody's faces and we'll have some wait time for questions. I'm hoping that you have some questions. I have some comments at the end to summarize some key issues, but what questions do you have for Sydney? Questions?
Christelle, this is Bev from Canyons. I don't have necessarily a specific question. By the way, all of these were just phenomenal. It's very inspiring, and I am just so impressed with all the work you've done. help me understand how, because both, I think Sydney and I have the name. Jennifer mentioned this course. How was this part of an overall, I mean, or was the endorsement earned through these coaching cycles? I'm not sure if my question is making sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and I can help you with that. So it had all the components that I explained. So it had a course at the beginning, it had the portfolio work with the coaching cycles, then it had the DLI foundations class, and then the way they actually earned or didn't earn the endorsement was the final presentation for the panel. So really nothing was, I mean, they did get college credit for the DLI class, but nothing was really graded along the way. It
Sure.
was competency. Were they able to show the panel that they were now competent in teaching ML learners?
That's great. Thank you. So I want to go back to something that Jennifer started with. She had the Tesol standards, and she had where she had reflected on them and said the assessment one, she felt she had met. Was that just, okay, so that was just determined through the portfolio and the coaching cycles, correct? So it wasn't like that standard wasn't a part of the endorsement. It's just that it had to be shown in the evidence during the presentation. Am I understanding that correctly?
It wasn't, I'll let Jennifer speak to that more, but what they did was they worked with their coach and the cohort at the very beginning to determine which goals to focus on, and which goals they used that rubric to determine if they had met certain goals. And that was a discussion I left to the teacher and the coach. So I'll let Jennifer speak to that.
Yeah, that was part of the very beginning of the first course we did back in the fall. Was basically, these are the standards, these are the rubrics, where do you feel you are? And that way we can show growth from the beginning to the end. I don't know that I achieved proficiency in every domain, but I'm a heck of a lot closer now than I was when I started.
Yeah, so just
Thank you. That's perfect. I appreciate it. I was just trying to understand how it all wove together.
Yeah, so let me say that the initial course, which I had to laugh about when I was on the panel, is actually the course that I developed at USBE called Supporting Students Learning English. And it's an overview of all the domains with some research and then videos of experts. And so that's available to everybody. And so what ended up happening is, I think we made it common or something like that. And then Ellie just adopted it in their Canvas courses, right? So if anybody in the state wants to join that course as a teacher and then take that and design their course, that would actually count for the practicum, the ESL endorsement, because it's an overview of all the standards. The other thing is the Tesol rubric defines the performance indicators related to competency. So that's when people do their self-assessment, they do what's immediately relevant for themselves related to their current teaching practice. So that's where that's the learner advocacy that's personalized in a competency-based approach, right? If you notice, the multiple people use multiple kinds of assessments. They used RISE, they use WIDA, they use benchmarks, they use formative assessment. This is the best example of formative assessments that I've seen generally. Because the other point is, based on formative assessments and the coaching cycle, then teachers reflected on what they actually realized was working or not working, and they actually changed, right? It's like the virus. The virus is always changing, but people never do. That's why we keep getting sick, right? So that's the whole point of a personalized competency-based approach. The other thing that's really important in a course that I recently taught, not on USBE time, It's actually a course that I designed 7 years ago, and I'm teaching it for Salt Lake. Is about the importance of vocabulary and the way academic language and academic conversation is supported by creating an engaging, safe environment in the learning community that's happening in the actual classroom, using sentence frames, students as coaches, language goals, observation data, which is great formative data. So you see, it just builds this skill set, this range of ability for teachers to better understand what's happening with each student. The fact that case studies were done, which is really critical, and the way in which case studies personalize the way in which the teacher is interacting with each learner. Right. I mean, so these are all incredible advantages of doing a competency-based ESL endorsement. So Ellie and Eric, do you want to say anything else in relationship to your experience of Wasatch? And you're inviting me next year. And remember, if you want me to facilitate a tuning protocol or success analysis, just email me and I'll be up there in a hot minute.
We're definitely going to do that, Christelle.
Okay.
I guess the last piece that I just would probably add, and you guys can all see why I get really emotional when I listen to the two teachers presenting. They would probably tell you at the very beginning, this process felt very fuzzy, like kind of they weren't sure about what they were doing. And I literally felt like I was kind of behind their little boat and I was tapping it to the left or tapping it to the right. I wasn't driving the boat.
Right.
And I didn't sit down with each of them and say, well, you're strong in this area, but you don't know this. That would have been counterproductive. And so the biggest thing that I learned from this process, and to see it come to fruition was amazing, was to sit back and let the professionals figure it out and discover things for themselves. And when they do that, that's when it's more powerful. And I think we can all identify and empathize with that. So I'm looking forward to continuing this program going forward. We're going to be getting some more teachers hopefully involved in it. The other little tiny piece I'd give, Lindsay said this to me at first too, and I'm like, not too many teachers. Don't try to have 20 teachers. We had, I think, 6 this year, and that was a lot. So just, work within your resources. So that would be my last little tip if you're going to start doing it. And then talk to Lindsay. She was a tremendous help for me to guide the process and create materials. And then of course, Christelle as well. So good luck everybody else. And we're here if you have questions. We'll try to answer them. And I guess the other thing we would say is, like the teacher said, we're still working on our process, as you heard me say, that this is an ongoing thing. So that's how it.
Thanks, Ellie. And Eric, last.
I would just say, if there's any way that we can help anyone out in this process, but also, as Ellie said, we're still learning. So we would love to hear what you guys are doing. And Lindsay, again, Monticello Academy was such a huge help for us, and Christelle just being able to share the wins across the state with this, and we hope to continue to improve it. And with our awesome teachers, we get to feed them back in, and we get to continually move forward, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think Utah is like the forefront of personalized competency-based education related to actual implementation and support for personalizing adult learning, which my friend Jane Vella would be really happy about as well. So Eric and Ellie, thank you. Sydney. So what we're going to do next is so all these people have been talking to each other. So we have Melissa Jacobs from Tooele, we have Harmony Krieger from Murray, we have Rhonda Bickmore from Ogden. We have people from Cache and from Entheos. So what I'm going to actually do is because I think there are bigger presentations, but what I'll do is I think, Entheos, where are you?
Right here.
Dina, do you want to say just a little bit about your process and especially when you visited Monticello?
Yeah, so we went through the courses with Christelle. We had a small cohort that did the Canvas courses, and then we decided that we wanted to develop a program for our teachers to do, because we found a lot of value in doing that. And so we're kind of doing a hybrid version where we are going to use the courses, but we're also using the competencies. So they're going to, do a lot of the learning and the reading through the courses, but then they're going to make goals and have observations and products that show that they've learned that. And then we went and visited Monticello's celebration of their learning to see how that might look, so that we could, see if we wanted to incorporate that type of sharing of their work and their portfolios. And it was absolutely amazing. Maddie did a great job today, but when he was able to really dig into it and talk about his thing for 45 minutes, it was really, really moving to see that work and to see how he's affected his students, and all of his sentence stems and the work that he was able to show at the beginning to later, and he was able to really show that growth in his larger presentation. It was just really, really amazing. And so we were able to take that knowledge back and kind of weave that into our presentation to Christelle, and kind of make it a blending of completely competency-based like Monticello has, but then using the coursework as well. And so we proposed that, and then that's what was approved. And we're going to start this fall, hopefully with a small group, and have some great celebration, next year. We're trying to have it be a 1.5-year cohort, because I think trying to do it in a whole 1 year is too quick. So that's going to be our goal. Hopefully can have some people come watch us, and it'll be as impressive as the ones that we've seen have been.
So Dina, thank you so much. And I think, so this is really the point. The way the competency-based design works is specific to the resources and the approaches that are most relevant for each LEA, right? There's not like the silver bullet and one model fits all. That's the point. People keep on, I'm not going to say which people, but they keep on trying to tell me that there should be a model. And I'm saying, no, we have the Tesol standards. And it's based on the resources and the capacity for making it sustainable and ongoing learning for each LEA. That's why it's called personalized, right? So Cash, Robin, are you still there? Do you want to say a little bit about what happened with your program? Robin?
Okay. No, I'm here. Let me. Now I'm here. Sorry about that. Well, I have to say, Christelle, that I feel like what Ellie said, that my little boats just going from the left to the right, these have been outstanding ideas. And now, we're just embarking on this journey. And so, we have a pretty good framework, but I think we can make it better with the suggestions that we've heard today. I just appreciate, the ideas for Maddie and Sydney and Jennifer, and I know I forgot somebody else in there, but thank you. I don't know really what to say, except for now I want to go back and look and tweak. But
good.
To see the successes that they've had, and I know that they don't have a lot of students, but even one student makes a difference. So that one teacher who only had one student, to build that even for the whole class. And then even though Sydney only had 5 students, what a life-changing experience for 5 people. So Christelle, I just don't know what else to say, except for now I want to go back and review what we're doing, and then just keep in touch with you and some of the others. But thank you. This is just valuable.
Yeah, Robin, that's exactly what it is. It's this whole idea of learning as an ongoing process for LEAs. You know, you want to learn across the state from each other and then make it really sustainable, right? And then when you see the final product and the changes, you know, when you look at what's happened with 5 students or 2 students or 1 student, that's really about personalization. It's all about relationship, right? So Robin, perfect. So now I'm thinking, so Cash just got theirs approved. Ogden just got theirs approved. So we'll do, so Rhonda, do you want to share yours and you just can give us an overview for about 10 minutes, and then Murray and then Tooele. But you realize how exciting this is. I mean, we started out with Lindsay and I 6 years ago, you know, at the University of Utah. And I hate to say it, but I was happy giving people heart attacks, not really heart attacks, but I was challenging them, right, to be their own, you know, the captain of their own learning, to be accountable for their own learning and really love what they were learning. Okay, so Rhonda is from Ogden. So Rhonda, take it away.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
great. Just wanted to give a little bit of explanation. We have about 1/5 of our students are students who are learning English. We also have a mandate that all of our teachers get their ESL endorsement. That is in part of their contract. So our cohorts are between 40 and 60 teachers. So as you can see, this is really something we have to look through, decide how we're changing, etc. But Christelle especially asked me to talk about the collaboration that went in to our decision-making and how things went. And so I thought the best way to do this was to just show you kind of where we started. We had a lot of conversations going. I put them all on this lucid chart, and you would obviously have different ones than we have. But first, I'm a cultural linguistic diversity teacher specialist. That's who works with our students learning English. And so our boss is JM, and she is the Title III director and Title I director in our district. So she helped us with that cost analysis. And so so we just, you know, we just branched out from each of those places. I guess I can't move this well. Here we go. Nope. Anyway, so I'm having problem moving. There we go. So she helped us with the cost analysis, and she also helped us with the time rollout, because she has a lot of resources, human and other. And so we reached out to that. She is a director at our school district, executive director. And then one of the big things that we did was we reached out to many of the directors and executive directors to help us with our, let's see if I can get this to move correctly here. I'm not doing a great job here. To help us with the roles of the teachers. So we know that some of the district educators are not taking advantage of the ESL endorsement, but what about our behavior specialists? Wouldn't that be great if they were involved with the diversity class and learn those things, and how to interact with parents of some of the students that they're going to be interacting with? And what about, as you talked about, the art teacher, the PE specialist in the grade schools, or the drama specialist in the grade schools? You know, how is this endorsement can be work for them? And then we also had them help us with the time frame. As you know, I think K-3 does letters in the first 2 years of their hire. So we had a time frame of 3 years, then we extended it to 4 years. We're looking at that time frame now, and of all the obligations that our new teachers have, or teachers new to our district have, where would this ESL endorsement fit in? And so we had several of our directors and executive directors help us with that. And then if over here where it says Adam, Lindsay, and Estrella, integration was one of the really important things for us, is that we integrated into everything that was happening in our district. So Adam McMickle is the head of our student achievement team, and Lindsay is the specialist over the instructional coaches and the early years teachers. Estrella is the specialist over DLI. And we looked at all of the things, how this would integrate into those different areas. And what are they already taking? Counselors take a diversity class. Is that diversity class that they took in the university, is that really what we, do we need to supplement that class, or are those classes pretty inclusive and would be helpful in our district? So we kind of looked at all of those things that students are those who are doing kind of the different licensing, not going through university, what are they required to do? Is there something there that we could leverage there that they are already doing? So we really worked on that. And then especially, just as all of you have said, it's that coaching cycle, man. That was the one of the biggest mandates we have from everybody in the district, that we have to include a coaching cycle here. And so with Lindsay's help, we've talked about how that could happen. We have a coach in each school. Principals do coaching cycles also. And we also talked about the advantage it was for some of our instructional coaches do not have ESL endorsements. And many of them will ask us, and principals also, what am I looking for? What should I be looking for sheltered construction comprehensive input? What should I be looking for cultural relativeness? And so we think that as we push this out and get their collaboration, that we'll be able also to increase everybody's understanding. From our resources, Christelle, of course, has been a great resource and has led us to her courses and to all of she's shared with us many of the things that you've been doing, many of the different districts have been doing, and has been invaluable to us to look at and what we are doing. And also we reached out to our digital teaching and learning team about courses, about USB-E versus, can we do our own Canvas courses? What do we have to do? And we said these have been USB-E. That was another thing that we had to comply with is, this contractual obligation that the teachers in Ogden School District get their ESL endorsement. And so we need to offer them something for that. And what we do is 18 credits is just 2 credits away from a lane change. And so that was whatever we do, we had to offer them those 18 credits so that they could get that lane change. So we're looking at, how do we do this and still do it competency-based, still do it with adult learning, and also they have to complete certain things to get credit at USB-E. So that was quite, so we've been reaching out, been thinking that through and how we'll do that. Of course, the state of Utah gave us the all of the things that we're working with the Tesol standards there. And then lastly, my team, we've just had a new one, Jasmine come on, myself, I'm Rhonda, Thais, and Jasmine. We're looking at, so how do we put this together? What does it look like? And of course, at first we thought it had to be just one thing. And now we're looking at, oh no, we need synchronous meetings. We need asynchronous meetings. We need cohorts who meet together. We need, so many different kinds of, we kind of broke out of the university kind of where we were thinking and doing our courses with to, wow, we can do a lot of different kinds of things. So the student achievement team is made up of many of the specialists in our district, and they've helped us with adult learning. They've helped us with, we're trying to, in the district, trying to create a personalized learning for all of our teachers, a personalized pathway, that adult learning cycle, and how they're putting theirs together. And we want to be integrated into that also, so that it doesn't look too different. But of course, we need to meet our needs. So that in a nutshell, but we're still have to collaborate in the future. We have collaboration coming up with our Board of Education, with our principals and our ICs, with the educators themselves. How is this working? What is it better for you? What will be better for you? And then we wanted some collaboration with our students also, and we haven't quite figured that piece out, whether it is a survey of, this teacher gets their students and surveys them as to how have these things been helpful that I've been doing in your class, whatever, get some collaboration going also with the students. So I know we have a different setup, 40 to 60 people in a cohort. It's a contractual obligation, meeting all those needs. So we're working on it. We're getting there, and we've been approved, and so we're really excited.
So Rhonda, thank you. I mean, I think that's the other thing. When you look at LEAs that are charters and they have one school, and Wasatch, who, is a little bit smaller, and then Ogden that is larger. I think that's really the whole point of a competency-based endorsement, because the way in which you're collaborating across the district is really critical, because oftentimes those departments are separate and they're doing different things. But the kind of work that you're doing, is ensuring that the learning of the adults is really focused on not duplicative, but really well aligned, and the resources that will support that, and learning constantly about what really works. So thank you for that. Let's see. Harmony, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so Harmony, why don't you introduce yourself? And Harmony's from Murray School District.
Yes, so I'm in Murray School District. I'm the ESL instructional coach and now our after school programs coordinator. So I apologize. I'm running a kindergarten program right now to get our kindergartners ready to start kindergarten. So you might hear little voices. So just so you know. But I was really lucky that I got to talk to Monticello and Wasatch about starting our competency-based ESL endorsement. I got to get ideas from them and really got to see, with us being such a small district, what was going to work best for us. And we've started it now. I'm doing our prerequisite course during this summer. We started it, and it's already been really interesting to see teachers reflecting. We start reflecting and getting to see, wow, I really don't do this as a teacher. And they've already been really excited to start goal writing. So we're using the Tesol standards, having them write goals, a little bit different than some of the other districts where they will pick 2 goals per semester. So they'll have 2 goals, 1 goal over the summer, which is going to be the family focused one, so they can prepare for back to school nights. And then they'll have one of the semesters to prepare for the portfolio presentation. And so we're going to have this portfolio being made throughout this time, and they'll be building their presentation based on the goal they set in all 5 of the they'll set a goal for all 5 of those standards. So within those, we'll be doing the instructional coaching cycles, or collaboration coaching cycles, I apologize, where I will either be collaborating with them or doing a coaching cycle within the academic side of it. So with ours, we'll have collaboration cycles and coaching. They're intermixed depending on what goal they're working on. And then we will also be doing monthly meetings with the cohort so they can come together, share ideas, and be able to work together and express what they're working on, what ideas do they have that they can share with others, what do other people bring to the table that can help support all of our students. So we're really excited. Getting it started right now during this summer has been it's been really interesting to see already, just like the ambition people have after doing that self-evaluation, to see, wow, I didn't even think about making sure that this is happening in the classroom. And I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective. And so it's been really nice to see already with us starting. I mean, we're in it 6 weeks and already people are getting excited to start working towards it. So only being in it 6 weeks, we not a whole lot yet that I can be like, oh man, I'm really excited that this worked well. I need to change this, but I'm excited to see where we go right now. We have 11 people in it, and right now I'm the only, it's really exciting. So we have 11 people in it right now, but I'm the only coach as of right now. So we're trying to get one more to buddy up with me, but that's where we're just figuring out with our resources. We told everyone, we're like, we're not taking any more as of right now. We'll see where our resources lead us. And so that'll be something we have to navigate as we go forward, being such a small district. But I'm very excited for the outcomes that I think are going to come from this process, especially with how excited people have already started becoming.
So Harmony, this is a great overview. And I love that we have like bigger districts and smaller districts and medium-sized districts and charters. I mean, that's the advantage of a personalized approach based on your resources. And if you ever need an extra coach, I'm actually a certified national coach. So
yeah, I'll make sure to reach out for sure. I'm getting all these coaching cycles in. I might need to phone a friend. So
okay. Okay, so that's great. And now we have Melissa. Melissa, are you there? So Melissa Jacobs at Tooele.
Hi, yes, I am here. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen. My director, Stephanie Rowley, asked me to sub in for her today, so.
Yeah, no, I know. So, yeah, you're sharing.
Okay, I'm excited to be here. I'll do my best to kind of give an overview of what we've got going on in Tooele County School District. And I apologize, I will have to leave just shortly after the presentation. I'm actually in class right now. I'm doing my master's in educational leadership through BYU, so I'll just sneak away once I'm done.
That's okay.
Okay, so I wanted to just kind of share my perspective of our journey. I am a ML specialist in our district, and I work with a wonderful team of individuals. And so this is kind of my experience as we've gotten this started. You can see here in Tooele, Stephanie started talking to our team in the fall, and she said, we really need this ESL endorsement program. I want you guys to start thinking about this. And I thought, yes, there's a huge need, but the logistics of how are we going to orchestrate this? How are we going to develop it? And so it was definitely a process that we needed some time to warm up to. And behind the scenes, Stephanie had been talking with Dr. Estrada, and Stephanie told me that she gave her the go back in September to move forward with kind of getting things rolling in our district to create this competency-based program. In winter, about the time we came back from winter break, our lead specialist reached out to us as coaches, and she said, we're going to start a committee who's interested. And so we got together as a committee. We started looking at all different types of books and resources that we could use. And this is really where we started to see the value. We eventually came up with 2 books that are listed there on the slide, Unlocking English Learners' Potential and EL Excellence Every Day. We felt that those had just the best instructional strategies specific to the needs of our ML learners, and that could just be really practical and hands-on for our teachers as a resource. And then we began a book study of those 2 books as an entire ML team. And that's where it really just lit the fire of excitement amongst us. And we thought, yes, this program really could be just game changing for our ML students and their everyday classroom experience. So in the spring, we began building our first introductory course. We were able to use the USB Canvas course that was created by Dr. Estrada as our template. And then we branched out from there. We had immediate interest across our district, and teachers began signing up. We did our first in-person meeting just before the end of school, where we gave an overview of the program and passed out our books and just launched right into our first course. So currently in the summer, we've got 2 cohorts going. One is elementary and one is secondary. And I am one of the facilitators for the secondary cohort. And so I'm just kind of monitoring the assignments and the discussion on Canvas that's happening as the teachers are interacting with one another and sharing their ideas. And it's really been so incredible to catch a glimpse of the needs of our ML students across the district, to see where teachers are wanting to improve in their practice, and also to see how information about WIDA levels, family engagement, and second language acquisition is really influencing the way that they view teaching their ML students, and especially just approaching this process from an asset-based approach and seeing the strengths that our ML students bring to the classroom. It's just been incredible. So, as you know, many of others have mentioned, our program is structured around the framework of the Tesol proficiency standards. And so we have a course for each of those 5 domains. Our participants use these standards to conduct pre and post self-learning evaluations that require reflecting on, setting goals, and then providing evidence of their learning for each of those standards. Our program is 12 months long, and there are the 5 Canvas courses. There's frequent in-class observations and coaching cycles, which we are so excited to start this fall. And each of the program participants is paired with an ML specialist within our district. And so each of us will be working one-on-one with them in their classroom to do these coaching and really just to be a mentor throughout this whole process. One of the unique things to our program is an emphasis on family engagement. So over the summer, our participants have already been planning their class and school-based projects. That is a required component of our program. And so they're planning out how they're going to bring in more family engagement and really link the learning and bringing parents in. And then you can kind of see I pulled from our syllabus. At the end of the presentation, there's a QR code that you can just scan that will take you to a link to our program syllabus, which has all of these details in our schedule in detail. You can see section 1 is happening now over the summer, and then in September, we'll jump into domain 2, which is culture. There's a culturally responsive classroom self-reflection and an essay assignment that goes along with that. And then moving into our 3rd section, October through January. This is really the heart of the program, focusing in on instruction. And this is where our participants have the ability to just look specifically at strategies that they want to improve on and set goals around incorporating those into their classroom practice. Section 4 goes from February to March, focuses more on assessment. And then section 5 will wrap up the program with professionalism and family engagement, and then our culminating capstone project presentations. And watching some of the presentations today is making me just so excited for what our participants are going to be able to demonstrate and show as an outcome of their learning. There are 5 specific projects that we've kind of outlined. And so one is the family engagement project, which I've already talked a little bit about. The culturally responsive classroom self-reflection. We're using a pedagogy checklist that allows teachers to really reflect on what things are happening or where are some areas where they can improve. And that can guide their individual goal setting for how they're going to improve things in their classrooms. Number 3, instructional strategies and support case study assignment. So they'll choose 3 to 4 instructional strategies and conduct their own case study and then report their findings from that case study. Number 4, their formative assessment infographic. This is a group assignment. They'll work with members of the cohort in order to demonstrate their understanding of different formative assessments and just share those with each other. And the last one, of course, is the culminating capstone project, where it's really their individualized learning and how they've grown as a professional throughout this journey. And it really, truly is a journey. And even though we're at the beginning, it is just so exciting to see kind of the light bulb and the spark happening, and to be a part of that is really rewarding. So if you have any questions, I can, try to answer any, but certainly reach out to Stephanie Rowley. Her email is listed here, and this QR code is a link to the PDF document that is our course syllabus. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. And we know that you have to run off, and I want to thank you for your great, the artist Peter Max, I think in the 60s. You all are too young, but he did this really cool kind of graphic. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And any questions at all that can be addressed to Stephanie would be really, appreciated. Let's see. Okay, so does anybody have any last questions? We're at 11 o'clock and we didn't take a break. So what questions do you have in general? And what I'm thinking is I'm going to actually send you out the approved ESL endorsement with all the pathways. There's Tesol, there's competency-based, there's district programs, there's the ETS exam, there's sheltered instruction based on different states. So Texas has their own, Florida has their own, California has their own. and they're all based on those TESOL standards. And so now there's more of a reciprocal relationship with those, so we can have teachers who come in not so stressed out about not having an ESL endorsement that is reciprocal with Utah's seven pathways. So what questions or comments? And it'd be good if you have the questions or comments and you say them out loud, so that I don't have to keep looking at the chat, if there's anybody who's interested in doing that. And Anna from Davis, I hope this kind of sharing experience has supported you. And Jenny from Box Elder, I'm hoping that this might make a difference for Box Elder. And Mike from Washington, and I know Monty. I'm working already with Salt Lake in the courses, but you could add different things and change so that it would be more personally goal oriented. And I see Gregory from Salt Lake is here, and Grand. So any questions or comments? So Anna's just from Davis is just saying, yes, it's really been helpful for her. Okay, so if there are no questions or comments, I just want to again say, thanks to Ellie and the teachers and Lindsay and her courage on this journey with me for about the last 6 years. Matt, you've been really wonderful. Thank you. I look forward to coming and seeing, Ellie, you can come with me too. We can go and see, Matt's art classes, which will be really cool as well. And anybody else who wants to. Michelle, I hope this has been helpful for you in Salt Lake and all the other amazing colleagues that we've had. I always look forward to this experience because you're learning from each other. It's probably the only state in the entire country that has a culture of learning across the state from each other, and your relationships are really, really precious. So I just want to thank you for creating a community, a state learning community. And Robin, thanks again for your comments. So I'm going to let you go, and I'll just hang around if anybody wants to ask other questions. So thank you so much, everybody, and enjoy your day.